All right. So my name is Eric Danitz. I'm the president of Cognitiv, and I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I'm very excited to be here tonight because this is actually my third week as the president of Cognitiv. So I've been in this business for a long time. I'm holding a glass of wine. It's probably not that big, but and the bottom line is really getting everybody together and having a conversation tonight about demystifying AI. And so before I was here, before 3 weeks ago, it's on, can you still hear me? I was leading the business at Reuters. And so as business side, or as I should say, the publishing side of the business, there was a big question about AI and what that's going to mean in that business. I have these conversations constantly. So whether it's on the buy side, the sell side, what does AI mean, right? How do we demystify that? How do we learn more about how we can leverage AI for the better as opposed to being afraid for it, or afraid of it, I should say. And so these are conversations, especially at Cognitiv, that we're having all the time. And we also talk about deep learning, which is within AI, you have machine learning, you have deep learning. You need to lean into these different terms and understand what they are because the difference is real. And what the outcomes are real. And what the possibilities are truly incredible. And so we have an esteemed panel tonight that I want to thank for being here. I'm sorry to have my back to you like this. And then we have my friend Mark over here who's going to be moderating. But it's going to be some interesting conversations, and we look forward to having questions from all of you as well. And again, thank you all for being here. So on to you, Mark.
Yeah, clap it off. There we go. Well, thank you guys. We will try to make this a little bit interactive. I've been told to keep this to about half hour or so of content here, so I will do my best. As Eric mentioned, I'm Mark Wagman. I'm a managing director at Medialink. We're a consultancy that plays in this space. In the spirit of not going through everybody and hearing their life story, which is probably better than mine, I'll make this really quick, and this happens to be in order of the notes in my hand, so it works out very perfectly. So we've got Susan to my right, who is the SVP and a solutions architect at Starcom. We've got Walt, who's a senior marketing manager at Sargento Foods. We've got Jacob, who is the EVP of Product and Innovation at Fusion 92. And then at the very end, Mark Carpenter, who is the Senior Director of Digital Activation at OMD. So give it up for these guys. Cool. So the purpose of today, I think, is you guys have probably all sat through a ton of panels on AI and every buzzword du jour. The hope here is to keep this a little bit more pragmatic in terms of what you guys can do today, what we're hearing in the market, what we're seeing firsthand. So if you hear a bunch of jargon, call the bullshit, because that'll be more fun. All right, so some of these questions will be pointed at some of you, but most of them will just throw... Is that me? That's me. Yeah? Maybe? Cool. Okay. So we'll start, maybe, Susan, I'll put you on the spot. Okay. Cool. So as we move out of the hype phase, if you will, of AI, and we start now thinking about all the great innovations and integrations of AI across the marketing kind of supply chain, what's real today? What are you seeing the most? What are you most excited about in kind of real world right now applications of AI within advertising?
So one of the benefits at working at Publicis is that we have the access to the Marcel AI tools, which gives us access to Bria, Copilot, ChatGPT, Adobe. And really what it is it's like getting in there and practicing, messing around, playing with it, seeing how it works, seeing how you write prompts, seeing how it can help you in your everyday. Copilot is directly integrated into the Microsoft suite. So it goes directly into SharePoint, and it can be shared and collaborated with. So what we're seeing now is people starting to dip their toes in, and I think that's the one thing that I have recommended for people is just to start trying out queries. How are you asking it? How do you get what you want to come out of it? Because a lot of it is the query management and understanding I need this or I need that, and understanding how to ask it, as well as obviously like there's creative implications too, and that's been definitely a big part of it.
Anybody else got some examples here of what's exciting right now in terms of tools they're using?
No, I mean, I think she hit it on the head. We could probably stop, like, ask it questions, right? And I know that's not specifically your question there, but for me, that's what I feel like everyone should take out of this is play around with asking these things a lot of questions in different ways, because that's how you're going to learn, how it's going to learn, and how we're all going to get better. So, yeah.
I equate this to, a little bit back in time when there was a digital transformation. When, people were working in print and media, and it was newspapers, magazines, and all that, and then we went to digital, and it was a very transformational era. We are in that sort of transformation right now, and I think people who've lived it before kind of know where we are, and I think a lot of them know how to navigate it as well. It's pretty relatable to people who've seen it before.
For me, I think it's really, thinking about the opportunity to solve, real business problems in a new, exciting way. A lot of companies are going through some pretty unique challenges right now, and what has been done historically just isn't cutting it. And so finding new ways to optimize your targeting, to go about measurement that goes beyond, your MMM, all of that, I think, that's what excites me about it. And opportunity, and, that all comes down to asking questions to figure out how you get there too.
Cool. So a lot has been written about, I think, of late of, this idea of like AI point solutions versus AI tools built into some of the workflows and processes and things that we're working with today. Susan mentioned it a lot in terms of like, Copilot and other kind of tools and technologies that are being used. And obviously, you feel comfortable with what you're already used to, and it's much easier to kind of adopt new technologies and new functionality within that. What is that unique to advertising? What actually helps make that real? Like, is the fact that, Adobe has spent so much doing what they do, made this easier, Salesforce, et cetera, or are you guys chomping at the bit for more point solutions to actually solve some of these distinct problems?
I would say that the solutions that are coming out are coming more bespoke for different industries. So we're seeing more things coming out for financial or healthcare. Recently there was something about MyChart, which is what we all use for conversing with our doctors. And there's an AI that is going to start to draft up responses for doctors, and then doctors can review it. So what we're seeing now is beyond just like, hey, generative AI, come make a crazy looking shrimp, riding a taco. Now you can say, I actually want to create this for versioning for my search campaigns, or I need to create multiple versions of this particular image for my social posts. So, and then I think if you go to specific verticals, you'll have things for financial and medical, and you will see more of that. But I think the interesting thing is that we've seen so far that the bigger the model is, the better it does across any vertical. So a very specific financial model doesn't necessarily perform any better than ChatGPT 4.0 because of the fact that it's just trained on much bigger data. So it's going to really be a fight for assets, resources, money to get the biggest possible data set.
I mean, that's following up your answers are really hard. So, for me, hopefully I'm answering the question here, but, there's, to go off the very large data sets, when I think about this from the brand side and, how we can approach it practically, I think, we struggle with it still being a ways off because this will seem awesome in this theoretical concept, but how can we actually apply this to what we're trying to do in a very practical, cost-effective way? That's going to, the cost benefit's going to be there. So for us, there's a lot of bouncing back and forth. We're watching things more than we're doing things. And I think it's going to be that way for the next several years.
Yeah, I hate following you as well. So there's two smart people next to me. Three, so sorry about that. Yeah, so, we're in an era as well, going back to dating the time, but we're in an era where everything has AI right now. If you look back years ago, everything has, or still today, has innovation. There's a lot of momentum around it. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do I build something that's valuable? How do I add more purpose to the products, to the company, et cetera? We're going to see a trend where everything is going to start to consolidate, where some people are going to take a step forward. It's going to be obvious, and some companies aren't, and they're not going to lean into it, they're not going to adopt it. And we are at like the top of a hype bubble right now. But I think the outcome of this is going to be more companies obviously adopting it, but the people who do it right are going to be the ones that are integrating and the ones that are pulling in from other AI companies to build a consolidated integration layer to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most interesting part about this time is that we all don't really know where this is going, and we're all almost at the same level. So it's the opportunity of everybody to, like I said, test this out. And adaptability is the key here. And also, all of these tools that are coming out are adaptable for our agencies and for our brands. I think that's what's really cool too. What will work for Sargento will not work for Clorox, but these tools can adapt and then be useful for both. And that's what I think is most interesting about the future.
Yeah. How much of your day is spent, so we've got on this panel, obviously we've got 3 kind of agency solutions folks and a cheese guy. He's Walt. He's more than a cheese guy, but yeah. Yeah, let's get some fans in the crowd. How much of your day is spent, as we talk about this, I'm in the consulting world, right? I spend half of my days trying to explain what these LLMs mean, and when I say data is the fuel, all of this jargon and bullshit. How much of your day is spent with that versus actually helping these guys navigate it? Because I found that that's part of the issue here. We can talk about this for days about, oh, you need more data. Well, more data for what and why? And great, now you can take one creative and turn it into 10,000. Why? Right?
Yeah.
Do we think we've captured that yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key. Is it's the same thing before as machine learning or algorithms. Now it's AI, and everyone's like, I have AI, you have AI, everyone has AI. Similarly with personalization, things like that, everyone just wants it, but they don't know why they want it. And I think that's what we really need to understand. Maybe AI isn't the solution for everything. Maybe we actually need a human brain for some of this stuff. Maybe AI can help that or vice versa. But I feel like we just need to maybe stop saying AI all the time and understanding the problem.
Yes.
And then seeing if that's the solution.
I completely agree with that. Part of most of my day is education, trying to keep people informed. And you won't believe how many people come to me and say, I have a problem and AI is going to solve it. And more than times than not, it's not an AI issue. It's a process issue, workflow, automation. AI is just an amplifier to that. It's a tool. And it's not new. It's been here for a very long time. And I've used it for many years. But it's this new application of it that people are excited about. And it has a lot of value. But at the same time, you have to figure out what's the right value for that. Is it solving the right problem? Because a lot of times it's not. And so a lot of my day is just fielding that and education around this topic of it.
So for this, I really think back to the great film Top Gun 2, where they're, talking about the planes, they're talking about the advances in technology, Maverick's outdated, but then it really comes down to the pilot in the box. And I think with AI, that really rings true because you have to be able to apply it. It's about what's up here still. That day may come, but it's not this day, to quote another movie. And that's kind of how I think about it.
All right, let's pivot a little bit in terms of, so one of the things, right, in all of technology, you run through that build, partner, buy analysis, right? And I don't think there's anybody out there who's advocating for Fortune 500 brands to be building some of this stuff themselves. And you see that in partnerships with the big guys, the hyperscalers, the OpenAIs, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, et cetera. At the same time, the brands that I speak about, one of the things that they tell me all the time is anytime I want to onboard a vendor with AI in their name, procurement and legal, it's too much, right? It's 6 months of explaining to those guys how to do it. So I don't think this is a technology or a phase in our world here that we can go at as a one-man or woman show, right? It's going to require those partnerships. So how do we get around that? How do we educate? How do we form the right partnerships that make sense in this world?
So I think there's going to be a time that's pre and post AI contract development. Okay. So Lionsgate recently did a partnership with Runway, to go through their entire catalog and help with what they're saying is pre-production, right? Because you can't touch actual talent itself. There's a lot of bills going through the California legislature right now around likeliness of talent, right? And I know SAG-AFTRA does not want people to use things in perpetuity, which makes sense. But what we're going to start to see is companies are become very smart about how they negotiate contracts from the get-go. So things that have happened in the past are going to be the way they are. And in the future, you're going to see more conversations around use of AI for very specific purposes. You're also going to see a lot more around what AI is used and how it's going to be talked about and overt, right? Like either some sort of stamp on something or some sort of disclaimer. And I think that's where people are going to start to need to push for companies to hold themselves accountable when they're doing this contract negotiation is like, where are you going to use this? Why are you going to use it? To what degree are you going to use it? And do you know how to stop it? What methods are you using to control this? It sounds like it's going to be out of control, but to control basically the scope of this project.
I think the second layer of what you're saying is, that's on the front side of it, but on the back side of it, it's the attribution. How do people get paid for what's theirs, and the content creators and the curators? I think that's an important aspect of this, and I think AI's blockchain specifically is going to play a big role on that, because you want the people who are creating these things to get rewarded out of it in the end, and that comes from the contract side, but also from the attribution side.
You guys didn't realize we were at a blockchain conference too.
No. I just know a lot about blockchain.
Oh, you're right. You're 100% right. Well, what do you think in terms of education, right? Like, not just education as to what is an LLM or all these things, but again, how, if I'm procurement, how is my data being used? Where is it being stored? That type of thing. Do you guys find that is a large part of your day, going to Jacob's point about the education? Like, is that a big piece still, or is there a way around that? Like, people have talked about AI guidelines, like the IAB has set things, or somebody needs to come in and fix some of this, or is this just going to be status quo until kind of the market matures a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know the other elephant in the room is privacy, right? Like, that's half of my day. The other half might be AI, but privacy is a big thing for my client. They have a whole team of not just lawyers, but media people, making sure that we are doing the right thing. And this is a big part of that, right? And I think the transparency part of AI is the most important thing that we need to make sure that we understand as an agency, and then we're able to educate our clients on what exactly these tools, these programs are doing and how they're storing the data. Because a lot of times it is black box, or at least it's perceived as black box, and we just need to uncover that. Yeah.
And I would add that I don't think the expectation is that everyone should become experts in how you train AI models, because I don't think I don't know if most people understand how a lot of programmatic bidding models work, but they still employ them, right? So I think there's a level of governance that has to be built into bias, so like a little bit of clarity on like where they're sourcing their data and what bias might be built into it. So there are kind of schools of thought about where AI models are trained. So if they're trained in Silicon Valley, it's going to be very different than if they're trained in Tel Aviv. They're going to use different data sets. They're going to have different biases built into the systems. And if you don't have that transparency in terms of where this data is coming from, you will not know if the results you're getting are biased towards a particular group, data set, et cetera. So, but you require someone to tell you this, right? So there has to be a bit more kind of transparency. And I think that's where a lot at the beginning with ChatGPT is that there were a lot of people who were very involved in it going, you can't give this power to everybody because there's so much behind it that they don't understand. And then other people being like, well, we need the data, so we should use these people as guinea pigs. They'll train it for us.
Yeah, is it like a ads.txt for AI? Like it tells you like the string of, yeah.
Super nerdy. Ads, Dex, TST, I'm with you. Okay, so, no, I'm with you. So we talked a little bit here across the board here about like the questions to ask, right? A vendor, right? Is take Cognitiv out of this for a second, but anybody who walks in and says, I've got the thing. We've talked a little bit about data sets and asking them where that data comes from. What are the other questions that you guys, all of you, and maybe we start with the cheese guy. I'm sorry, it's just too easy. I will call you Walt. I apologize. I take that back. Walt. When I'm sure because your phone probably rings off the hook every day by somebody promising you some magical thing, whether we're talking creative, we're talking performance, whatever it is. what are your go-to bullshit questions to kind of understand whether or not this is real and where you know, how it comes together?
I mean, this sounds super simple, but this, coming to mind is something that was even before my time with the cheese land. Does your tool even continually learn? This sounds super simple, but it's such a problem. And it's just the most basic thing. And I think that's where you start, and then you start unpacking from there. Okay, how are you continually learning? What are you doing with that learning? And it's just really trying to strip things down to the most basic elements. That's what's always been most helpful for me in this space, is just really bringing it back down to the basics. And that makes it so much easier to actually communicate to your leadership teams, to your legal teams too, to actually be able to do the thing at the end of the day.
I'll go next. There's a couple considerations that you have to think about, and it's name it a conference or talk here. It's hype, So a lot of people will say something, make a claim, but they have to back it up, And there has to be real value, and I'm not talking about just efficiency, time savings. There needs to be a purpose and value outcome. That's a result, and it's important that you look at the whole thing through lenses around compliance, security, longevity, sustainability, data preservation, and privacy regulation. Just so much on that side before you even get to this concept of, will we benefit from it financially? Will we build in, have efficiency savings, time savings, and value from that? There's so many other considerations that you need to think about before you even get to that point. There's a scoring mechanism that you need to look at the full perspective.
I think that's why you're seeing so many of them be free, because they know that people don't understand how to use it and they don't understand where it's going to be applied. And so right now, so much of it's free, or like you get a limited number of queries or you can mess around so that they can kind of be like, well, see, now you know how it works, right? Like now you understand. But I'm now starting to see more differentiation in terms of sourcing. Like Copilot gives you sources at the end. It'll say where it came from, which is very helpful. Other ones will tell you that they're pulling from social feeds. Like Perplexity will source from social feeds, right? So it's very specific in its scope that I'm going to pull from these social feeds and kind of summarize it for you, which is a very clear use case, right? Like I need to know social conversations around cheese. You can ask a query either to Perplexity, or Quilt AI has a sphere on that, and they can surface the whole thing and give you some sort of visualization around all of that. And a lot of them are going to give you a free trial because they'll want you to try it out to see if it actually works. So if they're not offering something or some sort of demonstration of it, that would be a red flag that they don't actually have something that's valuable or differentiating from the marketplace that we can get.
Or if they're using your data to train their models. That's a red flag right off the bat. And a lot of products out there, a lot of people put these meeting invites on there that listen for your meetings and record it and throw it out there. 9 out of 10 of them are taking your data and using it, your client's data, your data, and purposely taking it and using it. You have to read the terms, read all the conditions. I know it sucks, but you got to read that stuff. And one of our hard and fast rules is we can't go with any product that does not retain our data for ourselves. Like we own the data, and nothing is going to be shared elsewhere. That's hard and fast rule.
Yeah. I think for me, I go into all of these partner conversations like it's an interview, and make sure you're asking the questions that need a response of just, yep, we have that, right? Like for me, the classic interview question, if somebody has the right question to ask someone that that they know Excel, because I lied on my resume that I didn't know Excel, but you can ask them and they say, yep, I know it, but like, how do you prove that? And so for me, I go to these conversations trying to ask those questions so they can actually prove what they're doing is true and not just saying that it's true. Does anyone have the question for that though? Talk to me after, please.
So we've talked a little bit about where we are in the hype cycle, and then in kind of this continuous learning opportunity that AI kind of represents and gives us here. There's also obviously been other transformational points in time over the last decade or more, right? Probably the most recent one outside of this world is the move maybe from kind of mainframe to the cloud, if you will, as being as transformational as this. I think today in 2024, right, cloud decisions are to some degree, I'm going to oversimplify this, still very kind of binary, right? Like, hey, I'm an Amazon shop, I'm a Google shop, etc. You think that AI gets to that point? Like, is this just that another layer where every Fortune 5 company has kind of picked a horse in this race, and I'm a Microsoft shop, I'm a Google guy, that kind of thing? Or how do we keep making sure that this is innovating and there's new things coming to the table? How do we make sure that this doesn't become just a 2 or 3 horse race, I guess? Any thoughts? Or maybe it does become a 2 or 3 horse race.
I think the cost is the prohibition here, because you're thinking like OpenAI is doing a valuation right now, and they're looking to raise like billions of dollars, like for evaluation. Like, there's so much money riding on this, and where is it? What is their business model for making money off of it? They've said that they're going to move to profit now to make money off of it. And everyone's like, well, that's kind of concerning, because you've been using all this data saying that you have this like model that's beneficial for humanity, but now you're trying to make money, and then eventually you might have to be talking to Wall Street. So how can you monetize all this information you have on these people and make money off of it? So it's going to be really hard for small players to get involved in it, because again, it's scale of data, cost of these chips. You guys should definitely invest in, was it NVIDIA? NVIDIA? All I ever see is the stock ticker, and it's like, damn, I really missed that boat. Like, they are the chip maker of AI, and they are going out of control. Like, that's where you stock tip for y'all. But like, this is cost prohibitive. Like, these big players, Google, Microsoft, can change the way that we look at this and how we use it and how we access it. So we're kind of at the, you're at an antitrust situation.
Yeah, so I think it will narrow down. Cost prohibitive. Microsoft is firing up a nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island to take care of the power needs. A single, I think, ChatGPT query takes 10 to 15 times the energy of a single Google search query, and that adds up. So having the power sources, having the resources is just going to become a thing. But I do think there's going to be some unique granularity to this transition. I think maybe more like marketing, automation software might be a comparable thing, where you do have your sales force out there, but then you have all these other smaller players are able to come along. You think HubSpot back in the day, you think MailChimp evolving along the way. So I think, it's going to be more similar to that than a hard just 1 or 2.
It's almost like we're in the beta versus VHS and Laserdisc era of the world right now. And the reality of it is that the LLM's an LLM, and it comes down to the data getting into it to show its value. That's why every model that we see out there has different value and different purpose for different applications. And we're going to continue to see that. And we'll probably see it go further away from that. You might see models that are very specific for a niche and another one that's specific for another. The generalized models that we see today are just excite us and keep us going until we start to see AGI, and then it's going to take it to the next level. But right now it's just it's a race.
The machines have won at that point. We're over. Maybe.
I'll talk to you later about that.
Okay, fair.
Anyway, it's the idea that nobody's really going to win right now. It's a race to AGI, and everyone's going to become siloed and perfect at some specific test. So people will choose models and not go to a one-size-fit-all. They'll have tons of models that they can pick from it and pick it for the right test that they're trying to do.
So as you guys are thinking about that, right? So as you were thinking about this race to AGI or the next couple of years as this kind of works itself out, how are you guys keeping your teams? Obviously you guys are pretty front and center. You're probably taking most of the phone calls, all of you guys on this panel, from vendors, from partners who want to do this. How are you keeping your teams up to date? Is this something that, you're sending more and more folks to conferences for? Is this something you're to your point, like you're giving them licenses to some of these tools to let them play around? If you were kind of, running the learning and development team of a modern agency or brand today, how would you keep folks up to date in this world?
Like I said before, query is going to be the new art form. So like the sooner we get to do that, the better of an agency we will be. So I think that will be the key, is just to learn, just to test these things, like ask the stupid questions and just work on it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to culture. You have to build a culture that is excited about these things, and you reward it. A quick example, we had a leadership team meeting about three months ago, maybe 4 months ago, and we were talking about our use of AI and what was most exciting about it. And every single person who said they used AI for a work purpose apologized when they said it. Oh, sorry, I used this, but I did all my nominations for my team members that I used AI, and they thought they cheated. And the reality is, you want to reward that behavior, and you want to build a supportive culture where people lean into it. You know, go back to what I was talking about before with traditional versus digital. I saw so many people in my career who didn't make that leap to digital, and they expired. You know, they retired, they changed careers. Lean into it. I mean, it is hype right now. It's going to go down. It's going to bubble back up, but you have to get into it now. Just like it was when, you know, search engines came out. You have to lean into that because that gives you an advantage. Your tool is no longer a hammer, it's a nail gun. You know, it gives you that advantage over everybody else. And the peer, you're no longer competing with to shoulder with someone and how fast they can do or better they can do the work you do. You know, you have to think computers are going to do this better. So now you need to get there with them. You need to be the expert that can drive that. So very exciting times, but at the same time, it's kind of scary for some people. But you have to build that culture that supports it.
To kind of build off, I agree with everything that was said. Kind of build off of that. Another thing I think is very important here, and I deeply believe in, is you know, deep, long-term partner collaboration. You know, I think there's always there's this tendency for a new shiny thing, or, you know, 10 things are the same. So, you know, pick the one that really fits your individual needs and go really deep with them. And I think you can get so much benefit from them. You can get so much learning from them. You can build case studies together. You can tailor your learning needs together. You know, I think back, you know, I started my career working in politics and #Obama. You know, very simple thing we did, door knocking, phone calling, 2 very simple strategies over and over and over again, to the point it got so sophisticated you were not going to beat us. And I kind of equate a lot of things that way. It's just you keep feeding the beast and you just get better and better over time.
I think the approval to explore AI has to come from senior leadership to say it's okay. You don't have to feel ashamed. Everyone does it. But I think the best ideas are going to come from mid-level. And I think that's because those are the people who are encountering problems and efficiency every day. I'm trying to run this report and I have to look at 14 different things and I don't know how to do that and it's frustrating me. Okay, well, let's figure out if we can find some sort of solution that's going to pull from all of this and solve this for you. I think the best ideas are going to come from mid-level. I don't think senior leadership's going to understand how to pull that off at scale. But I think when you have like real dollars, like we're running these campaigns and we keep losing money on this or that, okay, well, now we have an idea about what we could potentially utilize AI for, and we could like have a real use case for it.
You know, I want to echo that because that's, you know, there's a leap from that. You know, it's the bottom-up approach. You know, this idea that, you know, leadership first was afraid of AI. They're like, oh, we can't use it at company. They're going to steal our data. That we don't know what this thing is. There's education that has to take place, comfort around that. But the bottom up is how it's going to happen. You know, even before we adopted AI or even thought about it, probably 80% of our staff was using it for one way or another. Image generation, validation of emails, writing emails, doing nominations for people on their team, whatever the thing is. They were already there. Give them the tools they need to protect your data, protect the company, but at the same time, allow that curiosity to take place. You have to allow people to explore and experiment and find things on their own, because that, when it bubbles up, is going to translate into efficiency, you know, it'll translate into value. And you'll be able to make, you know, what your goal is efficiency in dollars. You know, you can't chase that day one. You're not going to be able to measure it day one, but you have to allow it to occur. And eventually the company is going to get rewarded for it in the end.
So we're going to wrap up here in a second, but I want to give you guys an opportunity real quick. We've all been talking about some of these cool tools. I may or may not have used it to write 45 appraisals, performance appraisals this year. Sorry, guys. You guys using them, like, talk to me a little bit about like what's the most exciting application in work or for fun that you guys have played with, whether it's like a lip dubbing solution or just, you know, Chat GPT on steroids. What are you guys most excited about? What have you seen of late that's kind of cool and interesting that maybe the audience would love to hear about? Anything come to mind?
I mean, Perplexity was already said down there, but I'm obsessed with Perplexity. I've replaced Google with Perplexity on my iPhone as my main search engine. I just think there's some interesting aspects to that feature, and you can just click out into whatever you want to to kind of research or learn more about. That's just more on personal level. Also, like the bio for this event, I use ChatGPT to write. So, hey,
there you go.
And kind of geek out here from a technology perspective. And I was into the tools, trying, exploring all that sort of stuff. But as of late, actually probably about a month ago, came across this concept of RAG, which is called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. And it's a concept where every time you send something to an AI model, an LLM, you're giving it more context. And context is the fuel for better results. And, I think we saw this with O1 coming out 2 weeks ago with OpenAI, where O1 said, we're going to do a reasoning engine, and they give it 5 different questions to ask and make it better along the way. That could be done, but if you give it more context, it could be even more valuable. So I think we're going to see, or I'm excited about, the future of RAG concept, and attach it to your SharePoint, your Salesforce, your media campaigns, Google Analytics, all your measuring stuff. RAG it. You get a lot more context, you bundle it up, you vectorize it, you can search really fast, and then you can get way better results.
I'll go the opposite and give the basic bro answer of fantasy football research.
You're cheating?
Great answer.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But more seriously, having a conversation with myself when I'm really trying to think of, ideas going in front of our board, going in front of our C staff. I will go back and forth with different tools for like 2 hours. Think of it this way, think of it that way. What if we did this? What if we did that? Just trying to ideate. And I think that is, it's very important to me, very special to me. I actively work in a more rural environment. So I think when we're talking about access, we talked about the internet as an access to information. I think this is an access to conversation that is incredibly beneficial, that allows you to work better from anywhere. And I think, for me, and I know for others, that's been something that's been very cool, and I think will continue to grow.
I want to add something that's different,
Yeah.
because everything that's been said is really interesting from different perspectives, and I like all of it, and I think that's all good. What I did recently, which was interesting, was I tried to create an image in all the different image generators. So I went to like Dolly and Bria and Adobe and a few of them, and I tried to create 2 roads that were converging into a single road. And you would not understand some of the stuff I got. Like, I got roads going all different directions. I had cars facing each other on a highway, and I was like, that's not how it works. But it was cool because I got to figure out the different qualities of different ones. Like, in one of them, I had the ability to click on different items and change it. Other ones, you had to do a whole new query, and I had no understanding of what you had queried before, which could be frustrating, right? Like, you already started something, and then you have to start all over again with the same prompt. Other ones grew on that, and they understood, oh, you wanted a road, not that kind of road, remove those trees, got it, and it can start to change it, or you can highlight stuff. So it just like opened up so much more creativity for me, since I work so much in, data. Being able to like start to be able to tell stories or start to talk about iteration and like how it's just another sounding board for you to talk to or work with. That's what's exciting, because like, especially if you work in a job where you're by yourself a lot, it's helpful to have that sounding board.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I want to, on behalf of the crew, thank everybody for coming tonight. I think questions, yeah, from the crowd, maybe. If anybody wants to be bold. Oh, we've got multiple, yeah.
Example of like a churros converging or turning that over like a data perspective. How you individually like training teams to be able to that's obviously is the whole thing, like see that as like correct for it. But like there used to for like insights generation or even like summarizing like harder POVs. Like how do you train the teams or how do you name train them? Just like is that what AI is getting?
Right. So I always would say that's a starting point. And what's getting better is you're starting to see AI models like Copilot source where it's from. So I would recommend like going to that, do your own searching to figure out if it's true. Don't accept that it's true, because, AI hallucinates. It can make up fake law, yeah. So it can hallucinate very much, and it just will make up whatever it wants. So you have to be able to understand your practice area well enough to understand where it's not going to be helpful and where it is going to be helpful. So what I find is like, if I'm writing an email and I'm rambling, what might be helpful, send it to ChatGPT. You've already put in a lot of what you want to say. Make this more concise. Do the TLDR on this, and it'll fix it up. Or maybe you have a lot of disparate ideas. Use it as a sounding board. What are the main themes to come? So I still think you need to come with the idea in your head in terms of what's the right thing to do, and use the AI as a sounding board and an aggregator and a synthesizer, but you still know where you're trying to go.
Yeah, the gap there is the trust side of things. You can't trust it wholeheartedly. And I think that's like it used to be with search engines in the day. You couldn't trust the results, and we're at that era with AI. It's not going to be that way forever. You're going to get validation sources, transparency, and scoring, and other things are going to get applied to it. But until then, there's going to be a lack of trust, and you just have to keep validation.
I heard a couple of things come up where it's going to go off those. So versatilization and process intentions. So how do we take the large amount of variations created with AI and actually incorporate them into our front-end experiences to rapidly iterate tests? And do you feel like there are tools that are already doing that? Because I saw another conference where they called the idea of we self-manually put that in every time, right? So I'm actually trying to build things that look at how I did your perspective on process limitations that they talked about presentation. I would achieve.
Yeah, I feel like if I knew that 100%, I wouldn't be on this panel, and I'd be in the south of France or something. But no, you're exactly right. And I also think a big piece of it too, and not to kind of sideswipe the question, is like to measure success of that, right? Like I work with a CBG client, so like the minimum amount of something is so grand that like, does this iteration work or that? Like, I don't know. So that's the other piece of it. There are tools, there's some internal tools at Omnicom that do that. But to your point, I've yet to see something that can really do it in real time that quickly, and then give me back like real metrics of KPIs of actual like business objectives to give me what's working and not just a media metric. So I did not answer your question, but I tried.
Well, I would say that I've seen different site personalization tools that say that they can personalize based upon recognizing a customer who comes to the site. Now, I think the two things that you're working with here is you have imperfect recognition and imperfect signals passing through imperfect pipelines, right? Like, can they work as fast as AI can deliver it? Is the cost of this AI generation worth the 1,000 of different versions it create? Do you have a way to monitor whether or not it's actually doing what it's supposed to do? Like the hallucinations we showed before. Is it going to show someone with 14 arms because it said that this person likes to do things? Well, let's just do a lot of arms on that person, So I think that there's going to be a bit of spot correction, meaning like I need this very specific thing done, and then it's going to generate very like pre-modeled creative pieces, right? This will create one piece of it, but it won't do the entire thing. I think AI is going to be like a component of the process, not the entire process.
Yeah, I also think creative iteration is a little scary for clients, and a cheese man could maybe attest to this or not, but without
It's my fault. I started it.
Asiago, cheddar, it's all good.
But like that creative approval, right? Like, and if you're seeing 6 fingers on something and a client sees that, like, forget it. So I feel like that's the blocker as well. Like, we do DCO quite often, but it is somewhat manual, at least to start. To get to that level of actual automation takes a lot of trust, and I'm not sure where they're at.
So I've been trying this and failing at it my entire career. Going from, the startup side with some beverage brands to the shoes on my feet. But what I will say is it's gotten a lot closer. So, 2 years ago, trying to pilot something with a company that's in pink, where, we really tailored the time we advertise to people, whether we advertise to them based on unique store location across the country, for treating each individual store as its unique entity. And then you got to layer in those actual unique customers. And we were able to make a lot of progress there, but there's just still real-time gaps in the process there. But I think that's something I'm sure myself and a lot of other people are going to keep working on. It's probably just something where we're 1, 2, 3 years away from like the full tech realization.
Well, thank you guys very much. Cool.